Hello, possums. Dr. Lena, coming to you from the future, one of my special powers. It's Sunday in Australia. We just went off daylight saving last night. It's now autumn. That's why I'm in my polar bear outfit. And it just goes to show the world is a very big place. Now, here we are on the other side of Liberation Day, which will go down in the history books as something never to be forgotten. Because very few things outside of the COVID pandemic and so forth ever hit the whole world simultaneously. And so you have the President of the United States tariffing penguins. The random nature of I mean, a lot of people have broken down and analysed the chart that he was referring to, which, speaking of penguins, could have been made up by a penguin. It's absolutely beyond comprehension that anyone would think this is a good idea. Now, the world, I'm here to report, is not happy at all and are making other arrangements because J.D. Vance single-handedly managed to offend the entire of Europe and the UK with his careless, arrogant, princeling remarks. Doesn't matter about the tariffs. People have the screaming shits, as we say in Australia, right? So what I want to do is first look at the world reaction, and then we'll drill down into impacts and effects in the US. So let's go. In France, Macron has called for all French companies to freeze investment in the United States. He can't compel them, but he's asking them. And many are saying yes. So already that's ticking over into the billions that will not be invested, that were targeted, companies that were going to build factories and things in the US and employ US people and offer goods and services. No, that'd be no. Okay. So we also have an extraordinary situation from the Australian perspective. It took us 100 years of colonisation from the Brits to realise we were in Asia. Bear with me while I digress. So when I was at school, we learnt about the Far East as this mythical place. It's not the Far East if you're in Australia, it's the near north, right? We're this far from Indonesia, the whole of Southeast Asia, and China is our biggest trading partner. So it took us, like I said, 100 odd years to work out geographically where we were. And something I have never seen in my lifetime, China, Japan, and South Korea are issuing a joint response to the tariffs. They don't do joint, right? Historically, they have their own complexities. A joint statement. Wow. So let's look at the world's reaction. I'll do 3 cards for immediate and 3 cards going forward, okay? The world's response. This is immediate. Oh, my cards are upside down. Sorry. Immediates and going forward. Right. Okay. Now, let me hold these up one at a time for you. The Knight of Pentacles. Now, the Knight of Pentacles is not an impulsive knight, okay? But people are so offended, they're actually really putting in place things that will make their own countries stronger in the immediate short term, which is completely understandable. Now, in political readings for years, this has become the card of the mercenary, but I don't think it's the mercenary in the sense of like Musk being a mercenary or something like that. It's more steadying the ship. It's more back to its conventional interpretation, right? Keep your feet on the ground. In other words, they're trying not to panic, but reacting really quickly. Right? This is emotional. Like I said, it was the insults as much as the tariffs. J.D. Vance describing the UK as a random country that hasn't fought a war in 30 or 40 years. No, they were there supporting US service members in Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, and so on, right? So this is emotional. This was a kick in the teeth, and they're not going to forget it for a long time. How to keep the quality of life, the standard of living up is the immediate thing while divorcing from the USA, right? So this is wanting to maintain, because pentacles are also values, to maintain their pride in European democratic values. Germany, for example, was not impressed with the Nazi salutes and other things. Preserving values, that's their immediate aim. Further out, this is another nine. Nines are the cards that are almost there. They will start to feel more comfortable in what they are able to achieve because they're going to pull all the stops out on this. Look at this, the Magician. This is manifesting new relationships and alignments in terms of trade, security, and culture. The Magician is extremely powerful, and the Magician has mastery over adaptation, which is what is required now, radical adaptation. Transformation needs to happen, and manifestation, making it happen. And new leaders will emerge. I don't think this is one person. New leaders will emerge in both, I think, all the big continents, let's say. These are new, younger leaders coming forward, which is needed every. Right. Okay, that's the world. Now, we're starting to see some of the Republicans belatedly standing up. The odd rhino, including Rand Paul and Mitch Dr. No McConnell. Remember Moscow Mitch? He's been instrumental for the last 2 generations in saying no to humanitarian programs and not serving the people of his, is he Kentucky? I think he's Kentucky. Not serving, standing in the way of 2 impeachments. Too little, too late, Mitch. Do what you've got to do now, but it won't compensate for your selfish behavior leading into this, but at some point of redemption. So some of these heavyweights are now trying to actually intervene in Congress being made into a bath mat. They've had the revelation. Can't believe it, can you? And I never thought I'd quote Rand Paul, but these are unusual times. But he pointed out when McKinley was president, and the Yeti loves McKinley, wants to name the mountain back McKinley and all of that stuff. When McKinley introduced the tariffs, the Republicans lost 50% of their seats after that. Isn't that something to look forward to? Isn't it bliss? All right, so looking, let's have a look. closer to home, GOPs. I'll combine the Congress and Senate in that sense. Will the rhinos stand up? Oh, a small digression. There's a tariff on Indonesian coffee to the US, but they don't sell any coffee to the US. I mean, the sheer barking at the moon madness of this. Oh, let's have a look. Let's have rhinos. Oh, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. New leadership coming through for the Republicans as well. Okay, I think it's going to speed up this process, right? Okay. All right. This is the voice needs to be heard, and the voice of sanity in this case. King of Wands, that'd be the Yeti in this context. These are the older, more mature members who have always had an Ayn Rand selfish ideology. They would probably even secretly agree with the Yeti about certain things. One of the things that the Yeti said from the golf course while the stock exchange fell off a cliff was, what was it? Only the weak, something like only the weak will suffer or something. Appalling. So they're not there yet. They still want to preserve their capitalist, selfish values, but they've had enough of the poison, right? You could say this cup contains the Kool-Aid and they're beginning to rethink their relationship to the cult because they've got their constituents banging down their doors. Love it, love it, love it. And once it starts, it's going to happen very quickly into the headwinds. I think more are going to stand up and defy the others. There's still fights to be had because these guys are allergic to raising the debt ceiling. And to a certain extent, in large economies, it's a furphy. My issue has always been the problem is this debt that everyone's worried about, the national debt, the national debt. That's the public debt, while all the wealth is privately owned. And you'd only have to tax the billionaires, a small, decent proportion, same percentage as everyone else, and you wouldn't have a national debt. So let's not get sucked into that, shall we? No. Okay. Now, before I get on to the judges and the Venezuelans and all of that, what I think has been overlooked because of the tumult of this time, this is truly a historic time, is the SAVE Act that the Republicans are trying to push through, making it very difficult to be a legitimate voter in the United States of America. It's appalling, and I don't think it's getting enough attention. And on top of that, where was it? I think it was in North Carolina, where a Dem just got to the Supreme Court. Sorry, I've been madly busy in the last few days. So a Dem got elected and they're recalling the vote or they're talking about not counting 65,000 votes, which would obviously be enough to make a difference or they wouldn't be bothered, right? So this is really, really important. I'll just remind you the SAVE Act, which has one of those titles, you know. You would have to have a valid US passport. A tiny percentage of Americans have a passport, apart from US serving members. Okay, a valid US passport, a valid government issued photo ID, a certified birth certificate, an extract of your birth from a US hospital, the record of birth, a final adoption decree, and if you were Native American, an Indian card. It just goes on. That's not even all of them. And it says, and other documents, plural. Now, this disenfranchises the poor disproportionately to everyone else. It's a pain in the butt for everyone and not right. You could make an argument for photo ID, but this other stuff. It costs a lot of money to actually get all these things. That list represents a couple of $100 that people don't have, particularly if they want to buy a dozen eggs. Like, no. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at the SAVE Act, will it? It's a terrible bit of legislation. Absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. Say, will it go through? No, and I tell you why, or even if it does, it'll be repealed or something. They're doing this in secret. People aren't even aware of it, right? Millions of Americans are going to be disenfranchised and they're not even aware. They're doing it in the dark. Okay. They're trying to push it through really quickly. This was the card we just got in another context, rushing it. Oh, whoops. Whoops, the tower. And they're going to have to make another plan quickly. I don't see it going through, but if it does, I don't see it continuing. And I think part of it is, and this is the good news, because of the Department of Greed and Evil, Doge, slashing and burning, and the demonic tariffs, everyone is impacted. And because finally, people who have been welded on to this cretin will be impacted as well. And then people are going to be much more suspicious, much more liable to say, let him do what he wants. He's such a good businessman. If he has to do these things, do it, let him go, let him go. I don't think there's going to be much more letting him go, right? I really don't. And that's the upside of the horror. And it will get worse before it gets worse. But ultimately, let me have a big digression here. Ultimately, I'm optimistic because here's the difference between some people being affected and other people being affected more and some a bit less, etc., etc. This is everybody. Everybody will now be able to work it out. When I say everyone, you can't, there are always some. However, we're talking in big terms. And they're going to question, and hopefully, instead of thinking, oh, he's a rich guy, he must be smart. Rich guys are smart. Rich guys work hard. Nothing makes me angrier. Nothing makes me angrier. Single mothers working 3 jobs work hard. Counting your money does not count as working hard. Sorry, Elon. No. So, what it does is make fertile ground for a much more radical, overdue agenda. So just briefly, in terms, we've been talking for years about the corporate Dems who individually have big portfolios and they also want to keep the status quo and just help people, in all sorts of ways, which is worthy, but it doesn't change the rot in the system. And the rot is systemic inequality. It's not accidental. It's not pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. It's not a level playing field. Whereas most people have been deluded into thinking, oh, well, if I win the lottery, won't that be great? And that'll be the end. It's geared against the working class, and it's geared against now even the middle class that's been eroded over the last 30, 40 years of neoliberalism, because the middle class pay huge tax. And then once you're above that and you become part of the ruling class, magically the world changes. What tax? You know? So that's why I'm thrilled to see Bernie's agenda. He has always been trying to make this fundamental point about wealth inequality, and AOC's message and stuff, which was seen as really out there, when in fact it's really basic. So I think all this horror and pain will mean, particularly young people, will start to go, well, maybe I agree with them. And I think that will force the Dems into a more radical solution, get rid of the band-aids. No more band-aids, please. Let's deal with the core issue. That makes me excited. All right, where was I? The Save Act. Big shout out to Cory Booker doing that historic filibuster. 25 hours. God, I thought I was a talker. And Greg Kosar, and there's too many to name. Beto's back. You can feel the tide turn. You can feel the invigoration, can't you? You can feel it. So don't get lost in the despair. Ally yourself with the reinvigorated movements. As I'm making this, the protest will have taken place. So I'm making it before the time of the protest. So you guys can all let me know in the comments what happened for April 5th. I'm already on the 6th. Okay. Now, we need to talk about these judges. There's one judge handling the planes and made the order for the planes to turn back that was defied. That's not going well for the Trump team. And then there's the other judge handling the case of the guy from Maryland who was sucked up in this drama. Now, with the judge about the Venezuelans, as a judge, he was asking the team to supply him with all the information: who made the original order, what was the chain of command, how were the planes commandeered, what time did they take off, what time did they land, who received them in El Salvador. The basics. They have no clue. They either have to be seen as radically incompetent or they're protecting the higher ups. So they're in trouble for bad legal representation. Now, the other judge, a woman judge, sorry, I've forgotten her name, with the Maryland case, she was asking the DOJ prosecutors similar sort of questions. Why was he arrested without a warrant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And I'll try and find his quote. What was his quote? Sorry, too much scribble. He basically said, I'm sorry, Your Honor, these guys have been playing games with me as well as the court. Ooh. Now, he was fired, not being zealous enough in his advocacy. Good on him. He would have known he was fired, but he kept his legal integrity by revealing to the court, I can't help these people because they will not give me basic information. Awesome. Good on him. So let's have a quick look at this. I think this is, because everything's so fast, I think all these, just like the rest of the world is realigning, America on the other side of the Yeti era, I'm sure the next president will go on a global apology tour and try and build bridges and repair some of the damage, and we'll be able to do some of that. However, I think in the big picture, America has decided to isolate in this way, and so will have to deal with its own crap in a good way. Really deal with it, not push it aside and come up with the next shiny thing. No. Okay. Now, let's have a quick look, because the law system has been struggling and we're still not out of the woods with these cases because, as we know, they're not going to comply with these orders. You don't have to be a clairvoyant to know they're not going to comply with yours. So what's the next step legally? Let's ask it. What's the next step in these cases? What's the next step? I just want to say a very touching moment. Lithuania held its own very solemn, dedicated service to honour those 4 serving members who lost their lives in Lithuania. They held a huge ceremony, public ceremony. What was fuckface doing? Golfing. And people are going to really start to resent that. It's been a bit of a joke, but they're going to really start to resent that now. Okay, focus, Lena. Back to the legals. We'll do a 5 card. Oh, the card du jour. It's funny how that happens. Oh, legal. Legal. Oh. Let me share. These legal cases, and there's 100 odd other cases going on. I'm hoping they're going to keep going and fight for the law, because both these cases will go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court. This is my Ruth Bader Ginsburg card in One World Tarot. What's the Supreme Court going to do? In the past, meaning recent past, this Supreme Court under Justice Roberts, may he rest in eternal shame, have just gone, not for the money in the way, that's more Clarence Thomas and stuff, but they've let the values decline down to literally 1 pentacle. There's only 1 glimmer left in terms. So there's still time for Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett to tip the scales, because they're down to their last pentacle, or they may not exist. But look at this for a through line. I'll show you. The truth piercing the crown of the Yeti's hair plugs. Look at that. Victory. Victory. But look at this. I think the courts and the legal system have had enough. This is what I call a through line through the middle. Look at it. Legal, legal, legal. Not a minute too soon. Not half an hour too soon. Oh, another grand dog's arrived. All right. Now, before I go, hold on a moment. Housekeeping. This week, I'm going to be on with Erica Robinson, and her channel is called In the Company of Cards. And we will have an hour-long conversation that she will then put up. We don't actually use cards. We just have a conversation. But the other one is to Hogarth, the collaboration I do every week with Hogarth, Lady G, and Sheila has moved. It's now Wednesday night, 7 p.m. EST. on Hogarth's channel. So please, it's live. So get in early. You might need to subscribe to be part of the chat. Doesn't cost anything. All right. Now, the other thing, I love the two women who run that channel. I've had it. Bless them. Now, if any of you can be bothered, you don't have to, but I'd love it if you go in their comments and say, maybe you should have Lena Rodriguez on. And if you go back a few years, that's how I got on Mary Trump's channel. It was you guys. And she said to me when she got in touch, she said, I got so many comments saying you should look at this woman and have her on. So if you want to do me a favor, I'd be immensely grateful. I would love to be on their show. They're so wicked and fabulous. Okay, so I'm off now into the day, and you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll be back before you know it. Besos. Let me know about everything in the comments. Take care, guys. Oh, I think, can you imagine what it's like behind the scenes in the White House right now? Okay, bye.